Hello and welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. I'm your host, Jeff Beecham, and throughout the series, we'll be looking at some challenges and opportunities facing UK manufacturing in 2022. In our fortnightly episodes, I'm hosting a range of guests from service businesses, support organisations. We're going to be providing subject matter expertise and guidance on a diverse range of topics affecting UK manufacturing. Today, we're going to be looking at one of my favourite areas within mechanical engineering, metal forming. So I'm delighted to welcome my special guest, Stephen Morley, President at the Confederation of British Metalforming. Welcome, Stephen. How are you?
Hi, Jeff. I'm good, thank you. Thank you for the invite.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So we were just sort of catching up before we came on air, and the Midlands region and Birmingham, where I live, is known as the hub of UK manufacturing. It's got an amazing heritage within what many people in the industry fondly describe as metal bashing. So I think the process is like, presswork, stamping, folding, forging, bending, fabricating, cold rolling, metal spinning, things like that. Is that a fairly accurate description of metal forming?
Yeah, cold forging is one you probably missed, but it's part of the forging family, if you like. It's funny when you mention metal bashing. If you go outside the Midlands, I think you're some kind of from the dark ages when you mention metal bashing.
Yes.
So you get very funny looks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to hear that phrase again, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a bit about yourself, Stephen, and what your role is at the CBM.
So I've been an engineer all my life. I started off as a tool maker. I actually went to work the first day. I think I was going to be making hammers, and because that's my understanding of the tools in the days. But he was obviously making press tools that made metal components.
Yeah.
So I started at a very early age learning my trade, and from there I moved into operations. I became an operations director and an engineering director at a top tier one company. I worked there for 22 years. And I've been involved in a lot of organisations supporting them and the industry as a whole. And one of them was CBM. I was director at CBM for 8 years, and then I became president. And I just help the organisation on the day-to-day stuff. I'm not involved every day, but I kind of support our CEO, Geraldine.
Yep.
And I kind of head up the lobbying. So it works well. We're a small team. We punch above our weight, but we're making an impact.
And you say that the ability to lobby is so important for the sector, isn't it? And your members, having that sort of that access to government and being able to put important topics forward from the people on the ground, actually doing this really important work.
Yeah, we say that we're at the coalface, and we can relate to what's happening today. We're not some kind of bureaucratic organisation that deals in infinite data. We look at what's actually happening today and relate it straight into government, whether it be civil servants or ministers. And it's something we've grown over the last couple of years, really. And it works. We're kind of improving the service to the members, in some cases dramatically. They appreciate it, especially what we've been through over the last few years.
Yeah,
and it's working for us. So and we just got to keep pushing. It's interesting the reaction of civil servants and ministers when you talk to them directly. And bluntly, as a Brummie, Brummie speak, if you like. It's quite interesting to see the reaction, and in a positive way, I've got to say, not a negative way.
Yeah,
which is probably what you wouldn't get from other people outside this area, especially down south.
So how important is metal forming then to the UK economy as a whole? How would you describe that?
I could blind you with figures here, but let's just say that every single day someone uses something to do with metal. Yeah. Now, you might not buy a metal product every day, but every day, we are using metal products, and that whether it be your car, your kitchen utensils, in your garden, where you're getting a plane to go somewhere. The computer we're using now has got metal components in, so our economy is central to that. And I do say that, and I did say this on a recent interview, that the government needs to realise how important manufacturing and metal manufacturing is to this economy, because when we are thriving, they're interested, and when we're not doing so well, they walk away from us. Or we got problems now, and we need really them to be consistent and have a consistent approach to supporting metal forming in the economy.
Yeah,
and that starts with steel making all the way through. Yeah.
So the CBM provides a wide range of services for its members. Can you just give a brief overview of what the CBM does and what type of businesses it supports, Stephen?
Yeah, so we represent 200 companies across the UK, including Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales. They manufacture in all forms of metal forming. So we're talking sheet metal, which is presswork, metal bashing, as you said to earlier, forging, fastening, cold roll section. So we cover every aspect of metal forming. Probably represent 40,000 employees from them organisations and 4 billion in turnover. So we've got some big tier one companies in there. And we go from companies with thousands of employees down to companies with 10 or 11 people. Yeah. So it's a wide scope. I think we should mention, as it's International Women's Day earlier this week, that Geraldine, our CEO, has been with the organisation for 40 years, and she's been the CEO for 10 years. So quite proud of that at CBM, that we've got a female leading us.
Absolutely.
And we should see that in more organisations. We've got Pam at the Confederation. It does a great job. Julie at GTMA, but there's not enough women. I'll go to these meetings all over the country, and there's still, not doing myself out of a job, but there's still too many middle-aged men in these meetings, and we have to change that. Yeah, absolutely. For the future.
And that's really good to hear that from another man. It's I've been to an event this week. Allied Women in Engineering in Birmingham. And I know Make UK had a big event on as well.
That's correct, yeah.
And that's great. And a lot of the females within industry have been supporting that and giving us a real insight into what can be achieved through diversity. Not just of gender, but diversity of thought as well is really important. But it really is, I think part of the problem is that us blokes don't talk about it and big it up enough.
I think that's correct. Totally correct.
So what other support organisations does the CBM partner with then? Because, I know you've got some other organisations that, you sort of collaborate with on certain topics and events. Can you just give a bit of an insight into how that works and who those businesses are?
So it's important that your networking is correct. We've got a strategy where we set up a networking strategy to make sure that we could be like a one-stop shop for our members. So I think the first part of that was really to grow the lobbying side, and we are on the affiliate board of Make UK. We also sit on the Trade Association Council of CBI. We've been on the UK Metals Council since it started. And then really the catapults, so the big AFRC in Scotland, AMRC in Sheffield, all these big catapults, WMG in the Midlands, we've got links with all of them and do work with all of them as well, which is important for the new technologies and the skills and training that people require. And then on a global basis, we are members of EFI, which is the European Fastener Organisation, Euroforge, which is the European Forging, and Geraldine sits on both of them boards.
Right. Okay.
And then we've got an international presswork association called ICOSPA, which is made up of 6 countries from Germany, France, China, Japan, and USA. And we're currently hold the presidency of that organisation. So quite a wide range and spectrum we cover.
So we've had Brexit, COVID, the Suez Canal fiasco, supply chain disruption, rocketing metal and fuel prices, and to compound all of that, of course, we've now got the conflict in Ukraine, which is having a devastating effect on people's lives, but also a negative impact on businesses around the globe. So what are your members asking for help with the most currently?
So I suppose there's, as you can imagine, numerous requests really. So really our focus is really on the policy and lobbying side, because a lot of the things we need to go to government.
Yeah.
So energy is the biggest one, I'd say now. I mean, we've got another issue I'll come to, but energy is probably was a problem before Ukraine, and now it's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So that is something that I believe the government needs to step in for industry. I'm doing the stuff for the home market, which I understand, but industry needs help, and we can't go on the way we're going to go on, because we've got some really high intensity users.
Yes,
we don't get any support, especially in the forging sector. But I say to the government when I speak to them, it's all relative. Because someone only turns over a few hundred thousand, the proportion of their bill is still the same as someone that turns over millions. So proportionally, it needs structured all the way through. But we have got some really high intensive use, especially in the forging sector, where their bills have gone, from 800,000 to 10 million, and that's no exaggeration. So it's frightening when it's gone to. And how do they get through that? So that's probably the first one. Cash flow is obviously a problem. We did a lot of work on trade credit insurance, which no one really grasped at the time. We kind of took a lead on it, and we managed with the CBI to get some good work done, and we got the trade credit insurance underwritten by the government by providing case studies into that. I'm worried where that's going to go, because cash flow is tight anyway. If trade credit starts to be taken away, which I think it will be, because of the concerns globally, then people will suffer on cash flow. So that's really, really important. And we have put a submission into HMRC on this, but that was pre-Ukraine. So that's a worry, because that cash flow will account for more companies going to insolvency than anything else. So that's really, really important. And then we've got still safeguarding, which is another issue which impinges on some of our members, and it's a Brexit issue. So forget the politics of Brexit. This is a self-inflicted wound, in my opinion. It's causing some real hardship to quite a number of our members and people outside our members. We've actually got people who aren't members of ours contacting us for help. So that's really important that we get that sorted out as well.
So what is, just for the benefit of the audience, I did a bit of reading up on this myself when I knew we'd be having this chat. What is steel safeguarding? I mean, I was reading up on things like anti-dumping, and can you explain for people that maybe aren't involved in metals, what is safeguarding and what's the purpose of it? How does it affect UK manufacturing?
So safeguarding really came about, and I'm not an expert in terms of history, but it came about because of the tariffs that Trump brought in on 232 tariffs Trump brought in, and the EU kind of retaliated correctly so. And also, we wanted to protect ourselves from markets like China. There's a difference between anti-dumping and steel safeguarding. Anti-dumping is not steel safeguarding. Anti-dumping is what it is. It just stops China or other countries loading our market with steel. There is a slight crossover, but they are different things. So when we left the EU, the government carried over the EU protocols in terms of safeguarding. There was an independent review by what it was called TRIDDEM, with Trade Remedies Inspectorate Directorate, which then became the TRA. UK Steel quite correctly wants to protect UK steel manufacturing, and I'm with that, and I actually agree with it, but there needs to be a balance. So they put their proposals forward. One, particularly on Cat 12, TRA recommended that it should be not have safeguarding, and then Liz Truss overruled it. That means now that we have members paying tariffs on important steel that isn't currently made in the UK. The Liberty have the ability to make some engineering steel, but unfortunately, where they are at the moment, they can't. Hopefully, they'll get back to where they can be. So we need to have a balance where UK steel is protected, but the downstream users are protected. Now, we've worked with UK steel, and they've given us some help and some support getting so far. But the proposal we put in place hasn't quite worked because HMRC's interpretation of how they regulate the alloy in the steel isn't quite the same as it was before. So we've still got work to do. But this is actually threatening 7 or 8 of our members. This is not just profit. I'm talking going out of business. So we've got more work to do there. But it's a direct UK tax on UK companies, which wasn't there before because of coming out of the EU. So it's quite a complex subject. I hope I've explained it what people can understand the gist of it at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work to be done. Yeah. Frightening, really.
Thanks for putting some explanation around safeguarding. Let's move on to reshoring. It's a big topic at the moment. And I have to say, it's really encouraging that, and I suppose, COVID has been a big driver in more businesses adopting reshoring. It's been spoken about for years, ever since I've been involved in recruitment and manufacturing, which is over 20 years. People have been saying, it'd be great to bring more manufacturing back to the UK. It was almost sort of like a bit of a pipe dream, but, not a lot of people truly believed in it, that it would happen. Well, it is starting to happen, and I think it's building momentum as well. What's the CBM doing to help maximise opportunities? How can you sort of help your members?
We've always supported reshoring. I think the word I use is exasperated. I mean, I just can't believe that we haven't got more traction on reshoring, given the events of the last few years. And I take your point that it has started to move in the right direction, but not quickly enough.
Yeah.
And while we're in the midst of COVID and Brexit, we had a major OEM resourcing work to China. So, if we were reshoring seriously, would we still be doing that? So that isn't right. And the message hasn't been got across, and again, now with the Ukraine situation, we've got JLR plants at Hayward affected. We've already seen the mini plants affected. All this is because products are made, in Eastern Europe, and it's impacting on the supply chain.
Yeah.
And sometimes that supply chain isn't the first tier supplier; it's second and third tier supplier, and sometimes the end user doesn't even know where the supply chain is. So that's frightening, really.
Yeah.
And I think, hopefully there'll be a rebalance where we can get more and more reshoring back into the UK. And the other thing to say is that, we've got members who are very competitive, who are working in global markets, in forging, in metal stampings, who are proving that the UK can be competitive in the global market, can produce parts the right quality and the right standard and productively. So, there's nothing there to stop us being competitive.
Yeah.
And given a fair chance, I think, we could move things forward. And I don't think we always get a fair hearing on terms of that, but we are capable of doing it.
Well, let's hope the pace picks up, in the short term. I know it's something that, a lot of businesses are looking at, but we just need action, don't we? Rishi Sunak introduced the super deduction tax incentive in March 21, and that was to encourage firms to invest in productivity enhancing plant and machinery, as we know, and assets that will help those businesses grow. So how successful has this scheme been so far from what you've seen, and what has the rate of uptake been for CBM members?
I think it's a good initiative. I think primarily I'd say extend it and make sure you do extend it. And the reason why I say that is because, one, we need all the help we can get. Two, the uptake would have been more, but people are nervous. If you've got a certain amount of headroom in your business and you've got uncertainty, would you go out and buy new machinery? Now, we've got people with strong order books and new orders who could possibly go that route, but there's not that many, not at this stage. So what I'm seeing is, yes, it's good. Yes, we'd love to, but I need to keep a bit of money around me just in case. And that's one company in particular has got safeguarding issues, so they're getting hit by this tax on the quotas, so they don't want to do it. But I've got numerous examples where people think it's good, but it's just a bit nervous at the moment. So that's why I think it should be extended, and we should be able to really benefit in the long term.
I suppose it goes back to the point you made earlier about cash flow. It's, you've got to keep cash in the business, and I know there's different forms of financing arrangements for capital equipment, but it is a balance, isn't it? It's like you say, with the uncertainty, you can take a calculated risk, but I guess a lot of businesses are fearful of even taking a calculated risk at this point. It's almost like the great unknown. What's going to hit us next? So what does the future of metal forming look like in the UK as a whole, Stephen?
Great question. I'm going to say positive because I want to be positive. I think it's easy to get dragged into all the negative things around us. And there are challenges, and one of our members said to us, we were like a crutch for them to lean on to get through the issues they've had. And I think we're still a crutch. I think we still need to be a crutch and support them. But underlying the issues we've got, the things are out of the company's control. The problems they're getting out of their making. A good company can still be affected by these problems and doing nothing wrong. A bad company will always be a bad company unless they can do a turnaround. So I think there's some really positive signs that if we get through this, we can really take off.
Yeah.
And I think the government need to understand that, and they need to be in place to support it. And I think there's not enough of that, not enough understanding of how good we can be to support UK GDP. And that starts with the steelmakers. And it comes all down the supply chain, all the way through to all our different sectors of manufacturing, and not just CBM members. There's plenty of other metal forming companies around the UK that they can do well. But I really think we can come out of this and do well. But we just need this help to get through these problems we've got now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a question that I didn't have on my list to ask you this morning, but I think whilst we're on the topic, I'll throw it in there anyway. I've been following and sort of helping the campaign and the movement for a petition for a Minister for Manufacturing, which was launched by Andrea Wilson at Honal Precision last year. What's your personal thoughts on that? I mean, I'm picking up that a lot of SMEs feel that they don't get heard in Westminster, and the trade organisations, like yourselves and lots of the other trade bodies are doing a fantastic job for their members. But there seems to be a sort of a notion where, UK manufacturing, particularly with SMEs, need a little bit more of a joined up approach. I think it's a great idea. What are your thoughts? Do we need a minister for manufacturing?
Yes, I actually signed a petition. I thought it was a good initiative. Kwasi Kwarteng, the business secretary, is good. He's got a handle on manufacturing. I've met him. I've wrote to him a couple of times and had quite prompt responses, which isn't always the case with ministers. He supported manufacturing. My concern is that he's pincered by Rishi Sunak from Manchester Treasury, who hold the purse strings. And also there's been a bit of a diversification into levelling up where Michael Gove has got a foot into the buyers camp, if you want to praise that one. I think a Minister for Manufacturing is absolutely key. We need an industrial strategy that's in place and agreed by all parties, so it doesn't change from one party to the next. That can take us forward and be sustainable and supported by whoever's in charge of the government, whether party it would be. We can't have this chopping and changing and throwing it away and start again. It's just so disruptive. And I'd urge all those companies who aren't members of trade associations to look at joining one, and not just CBM. Look around and look. Because I think you need a voice. You need a voice out there. A good trade association will give you that voice, and it's probably stronger than a single voice, because a single voice doesn't really get heard. And sometimes we struggle to get heard, but we're persistent. And we use the CBI and Make UK because they're part of the B5, so direct access to ministers. So it's a two-way thing. But it's really important that we have a complete structure, a manufacturing strategy, and Ted Danker or Steve Phipson will say exactly the same thing. There's a strategy, needs things put in place. So it's really important. I'd say critical, in fact.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. It is key. So in terms of the CBM plans for the rest of this year, do you have any exciting news or anything up your sleeve about any events or, I don't know, new service launches for your members? What's on the agenda for the rest of the year?
Yeah, we've got a lot going on, actually. I think first and foremost, obviously, we've got to sort of try and help our members through this. The lobbying will continue strongly, both on energy and safeguarding. We've got to really push that through. Looking forward, we're just starting work on a net zero roadmap for metal forming. So there's kind of roadmaps out there that people have already started, and I know kind of people are saying forget net zero for now. There's so many problems, but we still think that we need to have a basis in place and a platform to move that forward when we're ready. So we'll probably start benchmarking net zero for metal forming companies, and then build a plan from there. And when people are ready to go, we've got something in place.
Yep.
We're just about to launch an enhanced HR offering, so our members can access HR and legal services. So that's something we're quite happy with, because I think it was like a string to our bow that was missing. We're doing a lot of work on training. So we actually have just launched what you call we just done a trailblazer for tool design, which is something our members identified they needed. So we've actually got that approved now. And we're actually in the process of getting a degree course written. So we've got this purpose-built tool design platform in place for people to be trained up and keep skills in the industry. And from that, we've developed also a level 3 toolmaking trailblazer. So trailblazer, we've been a group of companies together to develop a program for training toolmakers in the future, and anyone in Metalform would say, yeah, look, we need toolmakers, and we need to train the young people, or other people who want to come into being a toolmaker at a later age, and we need to have the platform in place. And we're doing the same for cold forging in the fastening sector. So it's quite exciting. So looking forward for skills and enhancing skills. And then as part of our presidency of ICOSPA, we've got an international congress in the Birmingham in October. So we've got people come from all over the world in terms of the countries I mentioned earlier. And it's a metal forming congress, and we're going to have some top speakers there and some top companies there in Birmingham promoting metal forming. So we're quite looking forward to that as well.
Good. I suppose that'll be a good opportunity for businesses to benchmark and discuss best practice and where they're making gains and getting some wins. Really, so it's good to have that knowledge sharing.
Certainly is. I think what we're trying to do is look at what's coming up, the future, and the skills required for the future, and also some of the technical ability and skills needed in terms of not just people but also machinery and processes. So it's an interesting time, and as we move to EV, there's some more challenges that are becoming visible. Especially now, with obviously what's happening in Russia, with all the materials that they supply into the global market that have been impacted. So it's a challenging time in terms of EV as well, which obviously has been the biggest growth in the last 12 months in terms of vehicle sales.
So really busy times. We're already in March. So brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Stephen. That pretty much wraps up today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion. Thanks again to Stephen Morley. Thank you for listening, and look out for the next episode of Insights for Manufacturing. See you next time. Bye-bye.